Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. This is really cool to see all's faces, and I'm so glad to be able to share this with you. I'd like to start with a word of prayer. I invite you to join me, and then we'll get on to understanding a little bit more about Laodicea. Father in heaven, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. And thank you for the opportunity that I've had to go to Laodicea, but also to return in the future. And I just pray that with these efforts, I'm able to just bring you glory, that I'm able to tell the story as best as possible. But as the Laodiceans, as you told the Laodiceans through John, give us ears to hear. Those with ears to hear should listen. And I just pray that we're able to hear and understand the way you need us to understand it. So may your Spirit work within us to do that. Amen. Laodicea is certainly one of the seven churches of Revelation. Is the last one mentioned, and it is all about the end times as well. Basically, it's viewed as the end time church. What is this whole project about? Because it is, as I call it here, a pilot project. So the whole point of this pilot project was to be able to eventually go and take a look at all of the seven churches. And I really wanted to get a look at Patmos as well, but that didn't work out. As I'm looking at the ferry schedules and all things like that, I would have needed another week to be there in order to make sure I could get out to Patmos and back to Turkey. So I decided I'm just going to cut that part out when I return, and I'm going to just focus on the seven churches. But before we get too far along, a little bit of thanks and gratitude. I have myself here pictured at Colossae, and that is it's like 10 miles from Laodicea. And so on my very last day, I had visited Laodicea 3 times. I was like, hey, I'm going to get out there. I'll give myself a thumbs up. And also as a thanks and gratitude, Dr. Carl Kosard, he advised me just a little bit at least on the idea of what I should be some resources that I could use, and so I'm really appreciative for that. Also, my son was able to go on the tour that they did this last summer and also visit the seven churches. So that was also really wonderful to have that opportunity for him. But the Faculty Development Committee, this whole experience is made possible because on this campus we have this thing we call the Faculty Development Committee. And they actually have what they call the Faculty Development Grant. And because I applied for a grant, this trip was partially funded by that committee. It is also partially funding my sabbatical, which is next quarter, which I'll tell you more about in a little bit. Certainly my departmental colleagues, very supportive of these efforts as well, especially with the sabbatical coming up. It's all about time away. And so we have to cover the fact that I'm going to be gone all next quarter. I will not be in the classroom at all, but I'm relying on my colleagues, Joel Libby in the back and Jerry Hartman up here. So thank you for the support. And then certainly my family, most notably my wife, who over the years has been able to give me such incredible support with almost, I guess we call it my travel habits. I love to travel. I love to get out there and see this amazing, beautiful world God has given us. And so she's unable to be here because she's not feeling well. She's been feeling fairly sick for the last 3 days or so. Thankfully, I have not gotten sick yet. Maybe it's coming. Who knows? We'll take one day at a time. All right. The primary resources I mentioned. I do have more than these right now. So as I go back, I've probably tripled or quadrupled the amount of resources I'll be referencing. But these are the primary resources that I've referenced. With the larger one here, Revelation of Jesus Christ by Ranko Stefanovic. That one being a primary source, especially on the biblical interpretations of these, of what we're looking at when we get to the biblical texts. The one by on the left by Colin Hemmer, really a good assessment of what life would have been like. He has sourced a lot of different a lot of different manuscripts of historical manuscripts, and really tells you a good idea of what life was like. And then to a lesser degree, this other biblical sites in Greece and Turkey. That's really a snippet, really, to give you an idea of what it's all about. To properly set the stage for basically who I am and what I'm not. I don't claim to be a theologian. I don't claim to be an historian, but I am a photographer and an artist. And I've spent roughly 30 years, the last 30 years of my life, pursuing ways to communicate in the visual spectrum, the visual realm. So when it comes to being a wordsmith or things like that, I can work it out. It's just that's not my strength, because that's not where I've spent most of my time trying to pursue that. My last sabbatical took me to Isle Royale National Park, this is what I'm calling a self-portrait, because that's my shadow there on the right-hand side. And this is a fantastic, it's about 10 miles-ish wide by 50 miles long. It's in Lake Superior, and it's 99.9% designated wilderness. So it's entirely, the whole island and the 400 surrounding islands are a national park. It's an amazing place. All you can do is backpack there. So I spent a week there for my last sabbatical, exploring wild and remote places. This is the kind of thing, like I said, I love to travel. This is the kind of thing I really love to do. But I'm also a family man. I love my wife and boys, and whenever I'm away, it's always like, I want to be home. But let's face it, when I'm at home, I'm also dreaming of places like this as well. So I'm in just a constant back and forth with that, it seems sometimes. I'm an educator, of course. I've been teaching for 18 years. This is starting my 19th year this year. And so I've been here a while doing this thing, and it is a really good job for my temperament, I think. And so it fits me really well. I'm one who likes variety, and you get a lot of variety teaching in the visual arts. Definitely you get a lot of variety. But first and foremost, most important, a child of God, understanding a purpose for why we do things, why others do things, is very important to me. I'm always asking my students, why is this important to you? What, the thing that they're working on. Help me understand why it's important to you. What can we do to pull that out? What can we do to understand that? And so this is the first project, though, that I've done that has a distinct biblical theme. And so that's something that is, I guess we can call it a shift in my work over the last 30 years. Why a pilot project? What is this all about? Well, let me tell you a little bit of background. I dreamt of this, well, I should say a multitude of biblically based historical projects during my trip to Lebanon in April 2023. I went there because I was actually looking at taking a position at Middle East University, and they are the only international school that the church operates that has a graphic design program. And so I went there to check it out. This image here comes from Batera Gorge, and it's one of the places I was able to get out to. So we see this waterfall coming through. So that's the first of a natural arch because of that hole there. There's a natural arch there. I'm standing on the second of the three natural arches. Then below me there's a third natural arch, and then the water just descends into the ground and doesn't come out until miles and miles away. So it converts to an underground that has a 900-foot waterfall. It's amazing to just stand there and just think again, the amazing creative power that our God has. Places like this is just amazing to experience. Absolutely love it. But I was thinking, boy, as I look at the flights from Beirut, Lebanon, to Turkey, to Egypt, all these other different places that would have biblical significance, they're really cheap. And I could get out there really frequently if I were to live here. And so it really started to excite me. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. Well, it didn't work out. So what's a guy to do? Of course, time and money is really significant constraint when you live thousands and thousands of miles away. But I figured I needed something tangible. I needed something that would be easy to communicate. And so that's where this idea of the seven churches came about, where I was like, you know what, it's got to define start and end, so that's good. And it's something that I think we in the Adventist Church, we can kind of look at it and just say, that makes sense. That's very familiar to us. So it was something that I was able to communicate fairly readily. And then I drafted the idea, okay, if I have this sabbatical, I feel kind of nervous about doing that. I want to do something that can get me my toe in the water, so to speak. And so that's where this idea for a pilot project came about. And so it thankfully all almost smoothly, I guess we can say. It went fairly smoothly. Of course, the idea of a pilot project allows you to test things and figure things out. And that is definitely what I needed to be able to do. And so what were my goals? Well, I wanted to visit one location. Laodicea floated quickly to the top because of its, again, familiarity with us and our understanding in our church. But with the idea of our new program structure, so if you happen to not be familiar, we have restructured. I work in the graphic design area here at the university. That was a couple years ago in the Department of Technology. I am now in the Department of Visual Arts. Film was in the Department of Communications. That is now the Department of Visual Arts. We joined the art program, creating that new item. So I wanted to have a project that could get me a bit more experience on the video side, though I fully recognize the format and style of video that I'm doing is not something that most of our students actually do. But the fact that I am doing video, I figured, hey, at least I'm getting in that direction. It's just trying to be able to talk the language a little bit better. And so I figured this would help do that. Of course, doing some research, I have always been interested in history, but not to the level of that would be for an historian. As mentioned before, I've always loved to travel. And I guess the word always, I can say, since I was 16, I've realized that. When I was 16, I went on a European study tour with my high school and my first Maranatha trip. And so going to Europe and Honduras in the same year, it was like, this is cool stuff. But going back to that idea of time and money as it relates to constraints means it doesn't happen all that frequently. So with the research complete, I figured I need to figure out a way to tell this story, and I need to figure out how can I make it interesting. So just looking at different ways, we'll get to that in the next one. But then, of course, applying the lessons. That is, the lessons of Laodicea, understanding and bringing all of that stuff together. That's a lot to do. And then finally, this notion of being an example, of trying to be an example for the students, because if you were in our classes, if you're in our studio classes, where we have the students, if you're one of our students, you would know you've got a project you need to come up with, and then you go through multiple iterations, multiple conversations, and the three of us faculty are there to sometimes drill you, but mostly support you. And then, of course, the rest of the students are there, and it's all about going through, kind of in a way, the same kind of process and being able to do that same kind of thing and hopefully achieve some goals. Some primary aesthetic and thematic influences. Kind of a weird name, but that's okay. Itchy Boots is the YouTube channel. I love her content because she's a motorcycle rider and she rides the world and just goes at it. It's crazy. She's been doing it for like 7 years now. Her name is Norley Schoenmacher. She has over 3 million subscribers now, and she just finished going through Afghanistan. She is currently on a trip from Istanbul to Japan on the surface on her motorbike. Of course, there's a few areas where she has to cross with some water, over water, but it's I like it because she's really focused. Her storytelling is very focused. She's on the bike. Occasionally, she'll stop and get a few tidbits of information, but otherwise, here you go. This is it. And it's all about the adventure. The next one would be Gabriel Traveler. He is completely opposite of Itchy Boots. If you were to watch his stuff, you might get bored a little bit. Sometimes I do. He's very laissez-faire, and his approach is to just simply show you what he sees and let it unfold with it seems like hardly a plan at all. And then the primary influence for this would be the Drive-Through History series. They actually have one titled Ends of the Earth. This is 20 episodes. There's others called Acts to Revelation, the Gospels, and Bible Backroads. The host, Dave Stotts, he takes viewers on a specific journey to see these locations firsthand. Really well done, just awesome kind of stuff. So if you were to take these three as an ideal for when you watch my videos, you would say, yeah, it kind of makes sense, where some influence from this guy, some influence from this gal, from this guy is coming through. One thing I've noticed, however, when I'm doing, like I said, this pilot project is valuable because when I'm doing something like this, I can then be really critical of myself because I know I'm going back. And so I think I need to take a little bit of that laissez-faire kind of approach and reduce that just a little bit and be a little more pointed and a little more right to the point with it. All right, so what happened? Well, the journey happened for the pilot project during spring break. I flew to Izmir, Turkey. Locally, they pronounce it Izmish for some reason, not sure why, but we would pronounce it Izmir. And it was used as an opportunity to get over jet lag. Smyrna, one of the 7 churches, happens to also be in Izmir. So I did visit Smyrna, and I was just like, I should at least visit, it's there, I should at least go. This is not Smyrna, this is just some random set of doors as I was wandering about looking for Smyrna. But I was like, why not? Let's not only use it to get over jet lag, that means I'm taking away the intent of saying, oh, I have to get Smyrna. But I did, so I could familiarize myself a little more with this notion of before I get to Laodicea, there was a little bit of that apprehension that was coming about. And I was like, I don't know, I just felt some nervousness going on. And then I took the train to Denizli, which was really convenient and really affordable. Photographed at Hierapolis, which is mentioned in Colossians. So if you're reading the book of Colossians, Paul says, send this letter to the people at Hierapolis and Laodicea as well. The same guy, Epaphras, he was the guy that founded the churches at Laodicea, Hierapolis, and Colossae. So these 3 cities, they're fairly tight-knit. They're very close to each other, relatively speaking. They're close to each other. And so the people of that time, they definitely would have a lot of communication opportunities, especially within the church, because it was such a new thing, and they had the same founder there. I then photographed Laodicea 3 times. By doing that, that was another thing where I wanted the opportunity to really have the chance to overdo it and then scale back if I needed to. So the first time I went out I didn't do any filming for the episodes anyway. I just wanted to get it out of my system, see what the place is like. And then I went back 2 more times with the filming for the episodes, telling the specific story that I wanted to tell about Laodicea. I then visited Colossae and Honaz, which is just up the hill from Colossae, and that was a fantastic experience, just as the last day shooting there in Turkey. All right, it resulted in 3 episodes. I was going to initially do 2 episodes, but I decided I really needed to split it out into 3. So I started with the by these. That's actually right in the middle of the letter to the Laodiceans. I then backed up and went to the what it means to be rejected, and then ended with the promise, which is the end of the letter to the 7 churches. So what were they told to buy? They were told to buy gold, garments, and eye salve. And I intended to start here because this was something a little more active. It was a command that Jesus was giving the Laodiceans. He set the tone, you're lukewarm, but then he said, this is what you need to do. And so this is found in Revelation 3:18. And part of my point with this series is to draw the story or walk you through the story visually by seeing these areas that we have in Laodicea. Like I said, I'm a photographer. This is what I've been doing for a long time, and this is this is what I know. This is my approach to things. I want to be able to share that story, visually speaking, as it were. So I started off in the central agora, and the agora is a marketplace where you basically, it's like going to Walmart. Basically, if we were to say for a market, they had 4 agoras there in that town, and so by having 4, that just suggests there's a lot of economic activity happening. They also had 2 theaters. This is the West Theater, and so this one is nearly fully restored. The North Theater does not look anything like this. There's a lot of grass, a lot of restoration still needs to happen. It is restored enough to the point where they have already had some concerts and other events happening here. You can see the crane there is still doing some work. So with 4 agoras and 2 theaters, this illustrates the wealth found in Laodicea at the time. So this structure here, now we have in the lower portion, we have this modern structure over this item that is called the Laodicean Church. So if you were to look on a map of Laodicea, it's simply called the Laodicean Church. This church comes from the 7th century, so this is way after John wrote Revelation. But I figured, hey, this is still here. This is something that's very interesting. And this particular item is actually the baptistry in the church. So even in the 7th century, they were still baptizing. The folks in the church were still baptizing by immersion. Now we go to the from the central bath, the central agora. You can see that column there. That's that same column we saw in the previous picture of the central agora. Right across the street from it, and then I've gone behind it, is what we call the Central Bath Complex. There were several baths in town as well. And so this is super interesting to me because we have the opportunity to see how complex their plumbing was with the water, and I guess their affinity towards cleanliness, I guess. But they also had 3 rooms, a hot water, a tepid water, medium water, and then a cold water in each of these baths. So they had very complex systems here in the 1st century. It's mind-blowing to me. One of the things about history that I like is just trying to put myself there so long ago and just understand what was it like. So more of that central bath complex, and then always looking for interesting compositions, something to maximize the opportunity to tell you what the place is like in a creative and visually interesting way. But this is where I start then telling you, hey, what were Christ's instructions? He says in Revelation 3:17, you say, I am rich, I have everything I want, I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. So I advise you to buy gold from me, gold that has been purified by fire. Then you will be rich. Also, buy white garments from me, so you will not be shamed by your nakedness, and ointment for your eyes, so you will be able to see. I decided to jump to this part for my videos because I wanted to do something that was a little bit unexpected. Again, I didn't start right at the beginning of the letter to the Laodiceans that John was writing. I wanted to do something that would take us right to the action that we're called to do. So the idea of being a lukewarm church is so common among us. It just didn't seem like that was the hook, as it were. It wasn't the thing that could maybe get people interested in this series of videos, in this little collection, this little three episode series. So I figured starting here was the strongest place to start. It was cut right to the action, then we'll back up a little bit. But what's meant by these things? Buying gold that's purified by fire, buying some white garments and ointment, and why would these be mentioned to them? There has to be some kind of understanding to the local people that this would have value to them in their common understanding of life and such. Laodicea is a bit inland, as we can see on this map here, but it is at the crossroads of two major trade routes. So you have Ephesus and Smyrna, also on the coast here. Those are rather important trading ports, but Laodicea, being centrally positioned, was well connected. Money flowed in and out of the city, and we have historical records that show that they were the only city in the region to maintain coin production during the reign of Nero, which was from 54 to 68 AD. They also had a significant earthquake in, I believe it was 60 AD, and Rome said, well, we'll help you rebuild. And they said, we got this. We can pay for it. We're okay. And they maintained their own, their own currency during that time as well. So they're being told to buy gold. But they were rich enough, the area was rich enough that to be told that you should buy gold, it kind of on the surface, it doesn't make any sense. What about the textiles? This idea of buying white garments and the eye salve. One of the main exports that they had was a fine wool. It was naturally black and very soft, so it didn't need to be dyed, and it was a product that they were well known for. It was in fairly, basically, people wanted it. It was in high demand. And then that just contrasts, though, buying these white garments. They had black garments, of course, and it contrasts the instruction to buy white garments. They also had this element that is commonly referred to as Phrygian stone. And while we cannot point to anything very specific that is identified directly to Laodicea with this product, it is made up of compounds that are found naturally throughout the entire region. Even the waters at Hierapolis contain an item that's common in ointments, and even the people of today would claim that there is medicinal value in bathing in the waters at Hierapolis. So there is a natural hot spring there at Hierapolis, and they've got a swimming pool there that you can literally go in and take a swim. So I got this little chart here. They were told to buy gold. They already had wealth, financial strength. They were told to buy white garments. They already had their wool textile industries. It was black, though. They were told to buy this eye salve. They were health conscious. And, of course, there are many bath complexes, too. It's hard to imagine, but they even had, in Laodicea, they even had a school of medicine. One of the doctors there, his name was Demosthenes. He was a renowned ophthalmologist. So for them to have this specific instruction, it really would have, I hope, it would have hit home to them. What's the spiritual application for buying gold? In 1 Peter 1:7, these trials will show, I'm reading here now, 1 Peter 1:7, these trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. And then how about the Desire of Ages, page 280, we find faith and love are the gold tried in the fire. But with many, the gold has become dim. The rich treasure has been lost. And then Christ's Objects Lessons, page 158. The gold tried in the fire is faith that works by love. This can only bring us into harmony with God. We may be active, we may do much work, but without love, such love as dwelt in the heart of Christ, we can never be numbered within the family of heaven. So we have this spiritual application that says, when they're told to buy gold, it's about their specific faith and their connection. Of course, our faith is our connection, our belief in Christ, our belief in all that he's done for us. But it's also faith that works through the expression of love. So they were not following along with what Christ is saying, this is really what you probably should be doing. Why should they buy white garments? I like these first two references because they are also in the book of Revelation. The whole book of Revelation was sent to these 7 churches. That was the whole point for writing it. And so they would have been able to, just in this one reference, cross-reference and understand this is what we're talking about with the white garments, which says, so the first one there, she has been given the finest of pure white linen to wear, for the fine linen represents the good deeds of God's holy people. In Revelation 7:9, after I saw this vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation, tribe, and people and language, standing in front of the throne before the Lamb, they were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands. And then Isaiah 61:10, I am overwhelmed with joy in the Lord my God, for he has dressed me with the clothing of salvation and draped me with a robe of righteousness. And that's the key right there. Clothing of salvation, and draped me in a robe of righteousness. Stefanovic, in his book, he states, to be clothed in white robes is to be rescued from the humiliating positions of nakedness and the shame of sin. What about this eye salve stuff here? Psalm 119:18, open my eyes to see the wonderful truths of your instructions. Ephesians 1:18, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people. With the book of Ephesians having been written between 60 and 62 AD, and Revelation written between 81 and 96 AD, it's highly likely that the church there in Laodicea would have had access to a copy of the letter that Paul wrote to the Ephesians. They were very well connected with the trade route. There's nothing that would preclude us from saying, why wouldn't they have been able to have this as a reference? So this teaching would possibly have been quite familiar to them. And Stefanovic states in his book, what the Laodiceans need is the discerning and working influence of the Holy Spirit in their lives. So in summary, the necessity of buying gold, which is pure faith and love, white raiment, which is spotless character made pure in the blood of their dear Redeemer, and eye salve, which is the grace of God and which will give clear discernment of spiritual things and detect sins. That's Testimonies for the Church, Volume 3, 254 by Ellen White. So Christ has told them directly what they need, and these are the spiritual applications for why they need it. And it's likely that they would have easily understood these things and that it would have had greater impact on them due to the familiarity of what they were used to in their city. This idea concludes episode 1, and then we go to episodes 2 and 3, and this is my track log. So I have a GPS watch where I track when I'm hiking and such. I miss the days of when my GPS was built directly into my camera because I wouldn't have to go through this process. What I have to do now is I transfer the track log from my watch to my phone, from my phone to my computer, take it from my computer, put it into Lightroom, and then I tell Lightroom, make the connection, and then it geotags all my images. When the GPS is in the camera, it just happens, and I don't have to do all of that. But anyway, Canon took GPS out of their cameras a while back, so whatever. So this is the route I took. So the entrance is pretty much right here-ish, and then I actually started the track here though, and then went all the way down here for this episode. All right, so rejected, with a title of being lukewarm and rejected, I wanted to backtrack and see why the Laodiceans were told to buy these things. The first episode was all about the action that Christ was wanting them to take. This episode tells us why. And then episode 3 is all about the hope and the promise. So this is found in Revelation 3:15 and 16. I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you were one or the other. But since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. So what is meant by these things? Why should they buy gold purified by fire and such because of this? What does this mean? That we know it leads to that. Well, let's try and take an understanding. How would they be receiving it? What would they want to how would they understand it in their day, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. It's about water supply. And so here's a Google map. Laodicea there at the top. Modern day Denizli is under the word water there, under modern water supply. They've built a dam and they've got a reservoir, supplies water to the whole region. Laodicea, it's hard to tell, but it's up a little bit on a hill. And then north and a little bit to the east of this, it's off the map, you can't see it, is Hierapolis. And so there are springs in the area as well. And so while we can't see Hierapolis, there is an idea, a common understanding. Stefanovic covers it in his book, where the water is transferred back in that day, transferred from Hierapolis down to Laodicea. We can see on this map there's other rivers and such going on there. There is a more major river that does flow between Laodicea and Hierapolis. Lycus River is what it was called back in the day. Today it's called the Oxu River. So what better place than to start when you're looking at, okay, this idea of water and things like that? Let's go to the city's water supply. So I walked down to the south end of the city and visited the water supply. So this item that we're looking at here is a tower complex that is split into 3 levels. And so depending on water pressure, determines which parts of the city get served with water. The lowest item, which would be everyone gets served with water even at the lowest water flow. That's where that flowed to all the government buildings. Then you have this level 2 was to flow to the baths, and then level 3 was to flow to the private homes. And so we have this item where my mouse is pointing. This is one of the conduits, one of the pipes. There's lots of calcium buildup in there, which tells us there's a lot of chemicals in the water. There's a lot of items that would actually make it not taste so good. And so that's one of the things, I'll spit you out of my mouth. Well, their water naturally just didn't taste very good. I mentioned there's 2 prevailing theories where they got their water. Hierapolis was suggested in Stefanovic's book, but in the other book by Hemmer, the 7 churches in the present day, that author suggests that it's about 2 to 3 miles southwest towards Denizli. So this is where I'm looking in the direction southwest, and you can see that trail going on down there. That's towards the edge of the property. That's where the pipe ran, and it goes directly to this water tower. So yes, we definitely have evidence that water came from that location in the southwest of the city. Just to give us an idea of where I'm at, I'm standing at the tip of the point of that arrow there. This is the overall city of Laodicea in present day form, with the numbers there that would indicate certain things on the map and such. So the water structure, it feeds the city, as I mentioned, and Hierapolis also was about 6 miles away. So to have only a 2-mile, 3-mile distance when we're dealing with this particular item, to me it makes more sense. But I want to make sure I'm clear. We have 2 well-respected sources that are arguing different locations for where the water flowed from. So I tend to agree with Hemmer, but again, I digress on that. So the water as it came out of the ground, it was warm. And so it would have cooled a bit as it was piped up the hill and brought to this distribution area. So the notion of lukewarm water makes total sense, because it would not have been a nice cold spring water like we think of when we tap water out of the ground or something like that. It was also filled with those minerals, so you would possibly get quite sick. You would have to filter it, you'd have to distill it, you'd have to do something in order to get drinkable water that wouldn't be a little bit to the mouth. Stepping back a little bit more, we get then this water tower complex is right close to a gymnasium. So we're going to see a few pictures of the gymnasium here, these next few photos. And so with the gymnasium, of course, just a place to kind of sort of work out and get some exercise done, because it was right next to the stadium. When we saw that map, we saw this big oval that was right near the arrow, and so that was the stadium. And so this is the ruins of the stadium with a gymnasium complex up above. So you can see all these rows that would be seating for the people, the audience, as it were. That's what we're looking at here. So what did Christ mean with his charge that the Laodiceans were neither hot nor cold? What's that all about? This is from the West Baths complex. Again, we have the hot water, the tepid water, and the cold water in the bath complex. Basically, the Lord is saying, and this is a place where in video 2, I'm talking about this ideal here. The Lord is saying is that they had lost their zeal for the truth. Also, they weren't called out for any outright sin, so they were neither hot nor cold. They were lukewarm, and he would spit them out of his mouth. That is, he'd reject them because of it. So to put it another way, if you're either hot or cold, this is my interpretation, if you're either hot or cold, there's something to be worked with there. There's still something that we can reach out and grab it, so to speak. But if you're lukewarm, you're really indifferent and you don't care. And that is something that is really difficult to work with. And so Christ is literally just saying, get your act together. Because if you're sitting there and you're being lackadaisical, it's not going to work out for you. Some type of action needs to happen. It's also been viewed as a position of compromise. And so it's in verse 17 where he goes on saying, you are rich. So we've seen that already. You are rich, and so buy these things and whatnot. And he starts addressing the reasons for their lukewarm status. Because what does the gold mean again? It's about the faith that is acted out through love. It's about the robe of righteousness, and it's about being able to see clearly. So essentially the situation is not good, and Christ is calling the church back to him. He's pointing out their shortcomings and telling them specifically what needs to happen in order to rectify the situation. Buy the gold, the garments, and the eye salve. In part 3, which is not published on my YouTube channel yet, it'll be my third and final episode of the pilot project. It is like 90% or more complete. I just ran out of, well, I don't want to say I ran out of time. I just had a lot of other responsibilities that prevented me from finishing it. But at least I have those other 2 up there now. It will be published before Thanksgiving. That is my goal. It focuses on the hope given. What is that hope that we have? I correct, this is Revelation 3:19 through 22. I correct and discipline everyone I love. So be diligent and turn from your indifference. Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in, and we will share a meal together as friends. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. Stefanovic points out that it's interesting that only Laodicea and Philadelphia are the 2 churches that were told specifically that they are loved by Christ. They are certainly loved, but they are also in need of, at least for the Laodiceans, they're in need of some discipline. And turn from your indifference is how the Lord is characterizing that lukewarmness. You can't get more direct than that. And he finally says too, I stand at the door and knock. So this is continuing. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together. In this culture, and I would say in many cultures, sharing a meal together suggests a strong relationship, and it's a closeness that goes beyond mere acquaintances. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Stefanovic points out that in the Near East, a throne was more like a couch. There was room for more than one person. So to join Jesus on his throne is something that they could, I think, picture quite easily. And pictured here is the entrance to Temple A, is what they call it on the map. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. This is effectively a final plea, a statement that is important and that we should be listening. We should be taking action. The Lord wants all of us to be with him for eternity. It's our decision, though. We have to not only think we've made the right decision, we need to trade in our worldly value for Christ's gold, that is faith that works by love, and obtain his white garments, that is his righteousness, and take his eye salve so that we can see things clearly. And if I were to editorialize for a moment here, this last one here, this eye salve, so we can see things clearly, this is where we truly need the Spirit's guidance today. We can think that we've got Christ's gold, and we can think that we're wearing the white garments that he offers. But are we being fooled? Only through the clear vision that the Spirit can offer us do we truly know if we're on the right track. So, what's happening in the future? 2 months from today, I've got the 5 a.m. flight out of Walla Walla, leaving January 11, 2026. I will be returning to Turkey to visit all 7 churches of Revelation. I debated whether or not to revisit Laodicea, but I think I can redo the site, and I should be able to do it in the scope that the whole major project will be done. So to leave Laodicea out of this second go-around, I felt wasn't a good idea. This is a pilot project. I will be making changes, and I want all of the 7 churches to be covered in the same fashion, basically. I'll film at least 1 episode for each church, but certainly larger churches like Ephesus will probably get an episode, like 2, maybe 3 episodes out of it, because there's so much there in Ephesus. And then I'm going to have a show. I was just asked today, and Steve, I don't know if you if she's asked you, but Jamie was asking me, can we have my show in the gallery by mid-August, because there's a big meeting here on campus where all of the pastors from the NPUC will be here on campus. And she was like, it would be really cool if we could do that. I was like, well, it is mid-August, and I'd rather have it done before September, that's for sure. So it'll probably happen by mid-August, so long as we can get it done. But I'll have another presentation, and I plan to do it in the FAC auditorium. I will advertise it much more widely, but the point will be I'll have another presentation that will cover all 7 churches and cover the sabbatical report at that time. That's all I have. I invite your questions if that is something that you would have any questions for. What do you got, if anything? Anyone's curious about anything? Yes.
How do you get this? There's no people in your pictures. There's not a bunch of tourists. How do you get time to do that without the tourists?
No people. This is why I'm going in winter. It's because there's no people. And I went during spring break, which is late March. And so there definitely were people by late March. I had to be patient. There were several times we saw that one photo of Temple A. I photographed that twice. And one time there was a whole group of archaeologists that had come. And so they were just taking their merry little time. And it was great conversation. And they gave me a few references that I could, some books and such. So it was awesome. I loved being able to do that. And one lady, it was so funny, the leader, she was all like, something like, you should come. I think she told me you should come early in the day or something like that. I'm like, lady, I've been here 6 hours. So I didn't actually say that, but I really thought it. But yeah, that was that was fine. But that's why it takes 6 hours, because you just got to wait if you don't want people in the shot. Yes. The most exciting thing I saw when I went to Laodicea There's a lot of exciting things for sure. I think to me, really, it has to be that water system, because for them to have pressurized water that can go uphill 2,000 years ago using clay piping is absolutely amazing to me. It just blows my mind. And how complex everything was with the distribution and all that stuff. One of the pictures I showed, I didn't, it was very early in the item of pictures here. I didn't comment on this. This is in that church, the Laodicean church, and this is the latrine. So these are toilets, basically, the plumbing for toilets. And again, just to have plumbing with flowing water for toilets, I've known this is happening, but here's the thing, it's just kind of interesting to see that. And these types of pipings are throughout everywhere in Laodicea. You'll see them popping up here and there. It's really cool. So that's probably the thing that really intrigued me the most. Yes. Yeah, do I have to register for permits or licenses? Well, I didn't. And the thing that I looked up that gives me confidence that I'm not breaking the law is they say that for professional use, whatever, you should get a team or you should get a license. However, that was also in conjunction, I was looking at items related to drone usage as well. So I wasn't exactly sure if it was purely for drone usage where you need a license, because they don't let you do a drone anyway, regardless of who you are, or if it was more broadly applicable to if you wanted to do something. Now, if I had a production like the drive-through history production, I probably would need some kind of permits, because you just there's a lot more involved with that. At Smyrna, they did not let me bring in my tripod. I did not like that. That really, it was just like, come on. But they didn't let me bring in my tripod. But at Laodicea, they did. And there was another guy there. I walked up behind a guy as he was going on his idea about, he was standing in a doorway and he was reading off that item of, I stand at the door and knock. Blah, blah, blah. And so I stood behind the area out of his frame, but I'm watching him do the whole thing. And then when he was done, I then walked through. I'm like, hey. And he was just like, hey. And we just went on our merry way. But he was also a single guy with a tripod just doing his thing. And then I don't have the camera with me, but I use a little GoPro Osmo 2, Pocket 2 device. It's just a tiny little gimbal thing. And so I'm actually more of a vlogger style. And so I'm holding it like that. I don't set the tripod up and then I'm talking to the camera kind of a thing when I'm out there. I have the little thing, the little GoPro or DJI Osmo. Yes. Tripods will have spikes on the feet sometimes, and so mine I can screw off a little thing that's a rubber foot and it'll protect the items. But there's, especially in Smyrna, there's an underground area where the water's flowing. And it's just covered with ancient stone, and so they don't want it damaged, basically. And so it's a thing about damage. Whereas at Laodicea, there's a lot more just natural ground as a balance of what you're dealing with. Because in Smyrna, the city of Izmir has grown around it, and basically they were just like, this little spot we're going to protect, and that's all they have left. Well, there's a theater up along the way that I also got to, but for the most part, just that little spot. In Laodicea, it's just wide open. There's a much larger space, and there's a lot of regular, just natural gravel ground that the tripod can be on, and it's not a problem. When I went into Laodicean church, they wouldn't let me take the tripod in there, but anywhere else, I was fine. Tons of restoration is ongoing. There was a place where they had another crane going. I took one picture, and then the guys were coming over, no pictures, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I got my one. So for some reason, they don't want that being photographed, so I just moved on. But yes, lots of restorations going on, absolutely. All right. Well, there is a reception upstairs on third floor. We've got 9 of these prints, 3 large canvases. Everything that you'll see up there, I made with our facilities that we have here at the school. The frames on the canvases I handmade in our wood shop. Did the printing, everything. So everything. I don't have my signatures on them because I don't have the pen the paint pen that I use. Basically ran out of paint. I was like, okay, it's not going to look good. So I didn't sign them, but yes, everything is done by me. I invite you to join us up there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you all coming. That's awesome.